So today we're going to be talking about obviously Paige Bueckers, because the reality of the situation is that this conversation is not going to end. Like, is it unfair to compare Paige Bueckers to Caitlin Clark? Yes. I think, ironically, when they were in high school, the better player was Paige Bueckers. Like, she was better. You can say all you want, but like, they played on the same USA team and Paige was better. In high school or in college as a freshman, they were very even. As a sophomore, Paige picked up a few niggling injuries. Caitlin Clark was better. Obviously, then tore ACL. Caitlin was way better as a junior. And the level Caitlin has played at in the WNBA is something that almost certainly Paige is not going to reach in her first couple of years. But that doesn't mean Paige isn't brilliant. And she's unbelievable in college, which means the comparisons are still going to be there. Like, people are always going to be looking for the next Caitlin Clark. Just like when somebody comes in, Anthony Edwards, is he the next Jordan? Like, it's always a conversation that's going to happen. But the funniest part about this is Paige is older than Caitlin. She's like older than Caitlin Clark. That's my favorite part about this. But this is something that's gone semi-viral, and it's like why everyone loves Paige Bueckers. And it's another one of those videos where it's like nobody can ever talk with Paige Bueckers without mentioning Caitlin Clark, or doing what Trendy Hoop Stars does and take a shot at or take a sneak diss at Caitlin Clark. Like, it is. I love Trendy Hoop Stars is my favorite page because they are hilarious. Like, it genuinely, it's almost written like it is rage bait. It is literal rage bait, and it is hilarious. Like, if that person's trying to be like an actual basketball page, they've done a bad job of it. But if they have done a job of being like, of doing enough to make it seem like they're a basketball page while also being rage bait, they've done a great job of that.
Paige Bueckers is probably the most universally liked person in sports. If you're into basketball.
Yeah, but the problem is that what happens when Paige Bueckers comes in and dominates? Actually, no, they kind of do like her. She went to UCONN, but it's like, we can't forget that Paige Bueckers, like, her fans going at Arike Ogunbowale already from her going to Dallas. Like, the reality of the situation is that she's loved now. Caitlin Clark was universally loved in 2023. And all that happened, literally, was that she lost a basketball game. Somebody did this to her. And then she went on national TV to say that person doesn't deserve criticism for doing that. It's just basketball. And because of that scenario, which she had nothing to do with, she became instantly one of the most loved, and she was one of the most loved before and continued after, but also one of the most hated by a group of people as well. The reality is that Paige Bueckers is loved now until something happens around Paige Bueckers that has nothing to do with Paige Bueckers, and everyone turns on her, which we're already seeing right now with the Arike situation. Like, all it's going to take is one Paige Bueckers, one crazy person, crazy UConn fan going too far and saying something crazy about Arike, and that being made public for people to turn on Paige too.
Basketball, you know her as Paige Buckets. She was basically Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark. But
that's what a lot of people have complained about this scenario, but this video about Paige. And the ironic thing is that she's not wrong. Like, Paige Bueckers was filling up, like, her high school. It was like almost like they were hanging from the damn rafters to get to see Paige Bueckers play in high school. NBA players were showing up to watch her play in high school. Like, people don't realize Paige Bueckers was the, like, first, wow, oh my God, there's a girl doing this type of stuff player. Like, as much as Caitlin Clark was almost as good as Paige Bueckers was the player people watched. And this is before TikTok. She was the player. But the reality of the situation is, Gino Auriemma coached the flair out of Paige Bueckers. Paige Bueckers played with a freedom. Paige Bueckers played with a flair. Paige Bueckers played like, for lack of a better word, she played like a top male high school prospect. She played almost like she had almost the freedom of like a LaMelo Ball. She literally did what she wanted, and Gino Auriemma coached it out of her in the name of efficiency. When the reality is like, did that make her a better player? Only time will tell. But it made her a less interesting player to watch. Whereas the flair was never coached out of Caitlin Clark. Lisa Bluder's thing was, we're going to let Caitlin be Caitlin, but try to use Caitlin being Caitlin as a way to help our team win, instead of Gino with Paige Bueckers of, you are going to fit into our system. Miss Bueckers, you might be the best player, but we are UConn. We've won X amount of titles. So that's the problem, is that we could see a Paige Bueckers in the W where she has her flair back and she's this super hyped up player again. But I think Gino's coached it out of her. And I think Dawn's trying to do the same to Full Wiley.
If you don't know basketball, you've probably seen all of the edits of her talking about her aura, seen her at Fashion Week and stuff. But I think everyone needs to hear her story. So in October 2001, Paige Bueckers was...
Like, we don't need to really listen to Paige Bueckers' story. Paige is unbelievable, by the way. But it's like the Caitlin Clark, Caitlin Clark basically talking about her tearing her ACL as a freshman. And then there's another thing where it's talking about this season where it's like, and this is where it always comes in, where it's like anyone will hype. Most of the time, people hyping a Paige is literally just to try tear down Caitlin. And it's annoying because one, these two players are friends, and two, Paige is unbelievable in her own right. But it's like, you've got the best rookie season from a guard of all time. And then you've got someone who's probably going to be an all-stars rookie. But there's a difference.
But I don't think that this was their fault. The refs they wanted Caitlin Clark to get that championship, let me tell you. But instead of...
The refs wanted Caitlin Clark to get that championship. Like, did you not watch the final? Like, do you call that moving screen in that scenario? Should the refs have called it? No. Was it a moving screen? Yes. Like, letter of the law, you cannot... Like, you can attack the refs for making a call at that time. But the reality is that they were up. Was Paige Bueckers going to shoot an off-the-screen pull-up fadeaway three, which is basically what she was going to have to shoot? Was she going to make it? The referees basically stopped Paige Bueckers having a chance of taking a really tough shot to win the game, but they were losing the game. Like, obviously the call changed everything. The referee stopped Paige Bueckers from hitting a circus shot to win a game. She was probably not going to make the circus shot. And the worst part about it is the refs, like, if it was any other time in the game other than the last possession, the refs made the right call. It was a moving screen. But again, look, the ref shouldn't have made the call. They should have let the shot happen, because even if it is a moving screen, it would have been an iconic shot, make or miss, and they didn't let it happen. So for the sake of the game, it's that. But it's like, oh, she actually would have won. The refs gave it to Iowa, and it's like, she would have had to have hit a circus shot. And Paige Bueckers doesn't take circus shots anymore. She doesn't take circus shots. She was going to have to hit a circus shot. So can people just shut up about that? Like this isn't like the rigged WNBA finals where Breanna Steward does the cha-cha slide and then gets swatted by Alana Smith. She catches the ball at the three-point line, does the cha-cha slide, gets to the elbow before taking a dribble, and then gets swatted by Alana Smith, and somehow it's 2 free throws. Like, there's a big difference in that. There's a big difference in a 7-step travel into a clean block being called as a no-travel foul. Like, just sent to OT. But that's the whole thing with this scenario, is Paige Bueckers was Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark. Yeah, well, so was... Oh my God, I forgot her name. So, like, people said Kelsey Plum was Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark. She played for the Portland Fire. Oh, I watched like a documentary about her, and like she was getting people to go to her high school. But it's like, the reality is that, yeah, these players were huge draws. Like, Hailey Van Lith was a bigger draw in high school than Caitlin Clark, and that's fine. The reality of the situation is that Michael Jordan wasn't the number one recruit going to UNC. They thought Sam Bowie was better than them, the Portland Trailblazers. Like, it's a scenario where, yeah, nobody was Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark, because there's not one person that has forced WNBA teams to regularly... The Atlanta Dream played them Indiana Fever in Atlanta twice, and they moved it to like a 16,000-seater stadium for a 3,000-seater stadium. There is no player that has caused almost every team to move away games to bigger stadiums. There is no player that sold out a 16,000-seater stadium, because again, the Indiana Fever set record attendance last season. There was no Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark. As of this point, there is no next Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is a perfect storm of everything. Caitlin Clark is a combination of, she is part of the reason for the growth of women's sports, but she's also benefited from the growth of women's sports in general over the last half decade. She's someone that has benefited from that, but also been a catalyst in it. She's somebody that has also benefited from the fact that NCAA men's doesn't have any superstars. She benefited from the fact that the NBA is becoming a worse and worse product, so more and more people got into the Summer League. She benefited from the fact that the 2024 draft class was bad, and people want to watch the WNBA over Summer League. And she also benefited from the fact that she's doing something that nobody has ever done before. Like, people talk about Steph Curry with these long shots. Steph Curry does not shoot from as long as her. Trae Young does not shoot from as long as her. And you combine that with her playing at a breakneck speed that we haven't seen. Like, again, she's a mixture, and being the best passer in the W, she's a mixture between Magic Johnson, Tyrese Halliburton, and Stephen Curry. Like, that's what Caitlin Clark is. There was never a Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark. There's never going to be a Caitlin Clark after Caitlin Clark. Paige Bueckers is the only Paige Bueckers. Paige Bueckers is the most hyped high school women's player of all time. Paige Bueckers could have been one of the most hyped female basketball players. Could have been the most hyped. Maybe the second most hyped ever. She might be the second most hyped ever. But the reality of the situation is that Paige Bueckers, what made so many people gravitate towards Paige Bueckers was what Caitlin Clark is something we'd never seen before. Men or women, realistically, to be doing what Caitlin Clark did. And you can say Steph Curry, but they're different type of players. Like, Steph doesn't play make on the ball like Caitlin. But we also had never seen someone on the women's side like Paige Bueckers. The problem is that we're now looking at her in college and she's just a really good player. And that's, I think, the biggest problem with your Dawn Staleys, with your Gino Oriemas, is they have won playing their system. So they get all the top recruits because, they want to win championships. But the reality is that when it goes to the next level, winning championships in college doesn't matter. We've seen it in the NBA. Nobody gives a flying fuck if someone wins a championship in college. Nobody cares. They care about how they can go from college to the NBA. It's the reason why Kentucky won almost nothing, and we saw so many Kentucky players be super successful because Kentucky under Calipari prepared players for the NBA. Whereas for years, like Gonzaga were good, Baylor were good. Baylor won a championship. UConn, how often UConn have won? But like, how few of those UConn players made it in the NBA? Obviously, Castle and Clean, brilliant this year, but it's like how few of those guys made it to the NBA. So it's a really weird one, but the reality is that Paige was not Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark. Paige was the first and only Paige Bueckers, and through through injuries and through her game adjusting, people aren't going crazy to watch Paige Bueckers play basketball anymore because of the way she plays the game right now. Caitlin Clark is the first and only Caitlin Clark, and there may not be another Caitlin Clark. There may not be somebody as good in college as Caitlin Clark. Her record's all probably going to be unbeatable. We're never going to see the mania because all the situations that made the mania perfect, like, it left a gap in the market for her to become maybe the biggest sports star on the planet for last year. But it is what it is. See you guys.